Hello! Today we're discussing how letters che, doble L, Y, and ñ work in Spanish. This is the last video on Spanish alphabet, so you're welcome. After this, we're coming back to the hard stuff, so let's go! And we begin with the letter che. I know it's technically two letters, but the thing is that it actually used to be considered a single letter. Even now, sometimes some resources may refer to che as its own thing. Nowadays, though, it is no longer a part of the Spanish alphabet, but the sound that the combination of two letters se and ache make is still pretty much a thing. And this sound is, well, you guessed it, it is the same exact sound the letter group CH makes in English, in words such as church or change. Now let's see some examples in Spanish. Chico, chocolate, ancho, hacha, sandwich. This was too damn simple. Time to switch up the gears. The next letter, or technically two letters, is doble L. Just like the letter che, doble L used to be an actual letter in the alphabet, but it no longer is. Since it is basically two letters L stuck together, you might actually believe at first that it makes the longer L sound. Well, I'm here to tell you that, unfortunately, that is not the case. In 98% of Spanish-speaking countries, the letter group doble L makes the sound y, like in words yogurt or yes. Now let's see some examples. Llave, llover, camello, amarillo, estrella. This is the most classical pronunciation that most of you will be using until the rest of your lives. But like I said, that's 98%. What are the other 2%? My favorite one comes from the region called River Plate. This is the area that covers a decent chunk of Argentina and Uruguay. In this part of the world, the letter group doble L will make the sound sh, like in words show or fish. This may seem weird at first, but I'll be honest, it's much cooler than it looks like. So what I'm saying is that the same words that we saw before will be pronounced chave, chover, camello, amarillo, estrella. Ah, Argentina, I fucking miss you, baby. I mean, as you can see on the picture, the River Plate region doesn't cover all of Argentina, meaning that in some parts of the country, people may be using the traditional y sound when it comes to letter group doble L. The last way to pronounce the letter group doble L is by using the soft sound j. This pronunciation is not specific to a certain country, but rather used regionally. I know it's popular in some parts of Mexico and Colombia, for instance. Now let's look at our examples one last time. Llave, llover, camello, amarillo, estrella. Nothing crazy, right? If you are confused a little bit, just give me a second. The next letter may have two names. One option is to say Y, which means Greek I, and the other, newer option is called ye. Technically, the option number 2 is the official one, but it exists only since 2010, which means that lots of people would still prefer to call it Y. This is not super important, just pick one and let's go. The funny thing about letter Y is that in Spanish language it can be both a consonant and a vowel. I myself have only learned about this a week ago, while I was working in research for this video. Now let's proceed. First, the letter Y is considered to be a consonant in Spanish when it is located either at the beginning or middle of the word. In this case, the letter Y will make the sound y, like in words yogurt or yesterday. And yes, this is the same exact sound the letter group doble L does. The best part is that everything I've just told you about doble L when it comes to pronunciation works the same exact way with Y. Let's look at some examples. Yogur, inyección, mayonesa, leyenda, proyecto. What I just did was the traditional, most popular way of pronouncing these words. But just like with doble L, if you go to some parts of Argentina or Uruguay, for example, these same words will sound like this. Yogur, inyección, mayonesa, leyenda, proyecto. Keep in mind that the actual spelling doesn't change. And lastly, if you are in some parts of Mexico or Colombia, the letter Y will make the soft sound J. Yogur, inyección, mayonesa, leyenda, proyecto. Okay, now that we've discussed how letter Y works when it is a consonant, let's see what happens when it is a vowel. The letter Y is considered to be a vowel in Spanish when it's either located at the end of the word or it happens to be a conjunction Y, which means end in Spanish. In these cases, the letter Y makes the sound E, like in words tree or sea. When it comes to conjunction E, I don't think there's anything to explain really, you already probably knew that it makes the sound E. For example, tengo mi maleta y mi pasaporte. Soy ingeniero y doctor. manzanas y naranjas. But apparently, we're supposed to make the same sound E when the letter Y is located at the end of the word. What that means is that these words in front of you should be pronounced lei, muy, soy, brandy, ferry. When it comes to brandy and ferry, I get it, it makes sense. But in case of words like lei, muy, or soy, I can barely hear the difference from the vowel sound E and the consonant sound Y. But the reason why this is important is because when the letter Y is used in a vowel mode, that is when it's located at the end of the word or it happens to be a conjunction E, it has absolutely no connection with the letter group doble L, which means it sounds exactly the same regardless of where you are in the world. In this case, it will always make the sound E. Now let's try to clear some confusion when it comes to choosing how to pronounce letters doble L and Y when it is a consonant. You may be wondering right now, well shit, and what am I supposed to do now? Should I go the easy traditional way or should I spice it up a bit to impress people on the internet? Not to worry, my friend, I have thought about all this for you. Let's consider 3 cases in your Spanish development. Situation number 1. If you are a beginner in Spanish and you don't live in the countries of 1%, then you should go with the traditional pronunciation, that is the sound U, like in the word yesterday. Don't try to be cool, you're not. When you're gonna introduce yourself, you will say Yo me llamo Marco. Situation number 2. If you are a beginner in Spanish and you just moved or immigrated to the countries of 1%, it makes sense for you to stick with whatever pronunciation the people are speaking in that new region of yours. So if you immigrated to Buenos Aires, you stick with the sh sound and you will say Yo me llamo Marco. If you move to Medellín, Colombia, you will use the soft j sound, which will require you to say Yo me llamo Marco. You will be surrounded by these sounds every day, so going traditional way for you wouldn't make sense in this situation. Go, have fun, and always use the condom. Situation number 3. You've been learning traditional Spanish pronunciation for 2 years or so, and you decide to travel to Buenos Aires, for example. Why not to try speak the way people speak there? You probably already have a decent level in Spanish, so why not practice different accents and slang words? This is fun, and people will always appreciate it. I believe in you, and just remember to always use the condom. There's also something I didn't mention, that's because I think it's fake news. Apparently, there's a cult of people who pronounce doble L and Y like soft L sound. So the simple phrase Yo me llamo Marco will become Yo me llamo Marco. If you know anything about this cult and where its whereabouts are, please let me know in the comments below. Also call the cops. This is an actual sorcery. The last letter for today is called Ñ. It makes the sound Ñ. Ñ. This letter may seem weird at first, but you already know how to make this sound. It's just that in English language this sound is usually made by 2 letters. Let's take the English word lasagna for example. The sound N here is represented by the letter group GN. Again, it's lasagna. Let's take another example. Canyon. Here the sound N comes from the letter group NY. Canyon. Would you like one more? How about New York? The word new uses the same exact sound N. Luckily in Spanish, this same sound N is always represented by the letter Ñ. Now that we have established that you can indeed produce this sound, let's look at some examples. Español, cumpleaños, cañón, año, mañana. Well, I think we did it. This concludes the series on Spanish alphabet. If you're a beginner in Spanish, I hope it was helpful to you. But now it's time to return to more advanced stuff, as the alphabet is fucking boring. All the materials are in the description, and see you soon!